agreed on some things. We had signed papers about the PLO, the reconstruction, about some other issues. Those papers were changed in the final draft, which is known as the Egyptian paper.
Mahmoud Abbas says you're just making excuses at the end. You're just making excuses, and Iran is telling you to do that.
He can try us, going back to those signed papers from both sides, Hamas and Fatah, during the negotiations in Cairo. If he's saying that Iran is making pressure on us, a natural question will be here. What about the Israelis and the American pressure? I'm not trying to say he is following what they are saying, but all the time when we were negotiating in Cairo, Mr. Ahmed Abu Ala was telling us, this will not be accepted by the Israelis, this will be rejected by the Americans.
But isn't the fact is there's no trust between you, is there? There's no trust whatsoever between you.
There is a bad experience, but I think we have to build trust between each other by working together.
You call this a political problem. It's a human problem, isn't it?
It's a political problem, it's not a human problem.
Abdullah is the only person who's actually mentioned the Palestinian people in this. Nobody else has actually talked about the plight of the Palestinian people.
Well, we have
suffering because of the disagreements and the arguments and the conflict between your two groups.
Excuse me, the Palestinian people are suffering because of the occupation. The Palestinian people are suffering from the occupation. No one is talking about the occupation, which is the main issue. No one is talking about the Western support for the occupation, which is one of the reasons of the suffering of the Palestinian people.
Osama Hamdan, thank you very much indeed. I am going to turn the floor now over to you, the audience. There's a gentleman on the left up there. Yes, you.
Good evening. My name is Mu'ad and I'm a Palestinian. Dr. Shaath, you mentioned that the parties need new people, and Mr. Hamdan mentioned that the resolution that the current Palestinian situation can be solved in a democratic way with the current institutions. Over the past 60 years, we've seen what Fatah and Hamas have been about. Constant bickering, continued hooliganism in the streets, and continued violence over the past 5 years where 1,400 plus people have died. What message is it sending to us Palestinians who are living outside, who continuously see land being taken in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip? What is it telling us?
We're telling you we want to resolve this. We are telling you it's really very tough to fight the Israeli occupation. The Israelis have international support, have a strategic alliance with the United States, and it's very tough to fight them. And therefore, in many cases, when we come to a very frustrating moment, when we differ about how to go on, we have problems. And this time we had the worst problem. We are telling you we want to resolve this. We are telling you we are determined to bring back our unity. And when we fall into problems, these problems have to be solved, and solved by reconciliation, not by war, solved by dialogue and not by fighting each other.
But our words have been spoken over the past 60 years and nothing's happening.
No, 60 years is not nothing happening. 60 years we were a case of a defeated people who were considered just refugees who need help from the international community. We are now a people with the right to self-determination on our land, and the whole world thinks our problem is the single most important problem. We have gained this by struggle. We didn't gain it by fighting each other.
Okay, let me bring in Mohammad Nazzal here.
Actually, I want to answer the question, big question. Who is the enemy of Palestinians?
The Israelis.
Israeli occupation.
Exactly.
Some people are trying to transfer conflict between Israelis and Palestinians to Fatah and Hamas. We can't deny.
Someone is trying to do that?
We can't deny.
Haven't you killed enough of your own people for that to be a reality?
Give me a moment. We can't deny and ignore that there is a big differences, political differences between Fatah and Hamas. But it was not civil war as the term which many people they are using it. It was some clashes. It is not a civil war, because civil war, it's happening among all parties, all groups in one community. It was a clashes between Fatah and Hamas.
So it's really not important. 1,400 people dead.
No, it is not
Palestinians killed by
1,400.
Palestinians.
It is not 1,400.
How many is it then? What's the figure?
I don't know exactly. I don't, one person killed by clashes, we are rejected that. But we are not talking about numbers. There was no civil war. It was, and it is now, a big conflict, a big differences between Hamas and Fatah. Why we are here, why we are talking now? We are talking now to resolve the problems between Fatah and Hamas.
There's no sign that you're resolving these problems in
We
any
are
way
trying.
whatsoever.
You can see what's happening in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Sudan. I mean, by dialogue, only dialogue. This is the way to resolve our conflict or our problem. I think we have one way
Okay, I'm
to
going
resolve
all
our
right.
problem by dialogue.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from the gentleman in the front row there. You, sir.
This question is to Dr. Shaath, Dr. Abdullah. My name is Mohammad, I'm from Palestine. Obviously, any reconciliation or national unity needs trust, and there's a lack of trust between Hamas and Fatah. But my question to you is, how can Fatah specifically expect trust from any Palestinians when Fatah has been negotiating endlessly and without preconditions with Israel for most of my life, while Israel expands its settlements, increases its siege, denies the right to return, imprisons thousands of Palestinians? How can we trust you when your leader Mahmoud Abbas hamstrings the Goldstone report in the UN? How can we trust you?
My dear friend, what needs to be understood in this whole is the difficulty of resolving the Palestinian problem. Not because we Palestinians are stupid or incapable, not because we Palestinians have not given enough sacrifices, but neither have we been able to liberate our land by war or by negotiations. We fought for 100 years, and we are still an occupied country. This is not because we are not sacrificing or because we are negotiating. It's because your enemy are the Israelis, who are European Jews that were persecuted by European Christians, and we are made to pay the price. And because of an agreement and strategic alliance between the Israelis and the Americans, that makes it very difficult for us to achieve results.
Okay, let the questioner come back, please.
Dr. Shaath, it's very obvious that you understand the strategy has failed. My question to you is, why do you continue doing it?
During the last year, Hamas did not send one rocket against the Israelis from Gaza. It's not because they are cowards. It's because it's impossible. Anybody who knows what happened in Gaza a year ago, the Israelis devastated Gaza, and the people resisted bravely, but it was impossible to continue.
Let me go back to the questioner here and ask him what kind of strategy you would like to see.
It is not easy. Neither can you just negotiate alone, nor can you just fight alone.
Dr. Shaath, I want to go back.
Continue looking for ways of facing the Israelis.
I want to go back to the question and ask him what you would like to see Fatah pursue in terms of...
We need to negotiate amongst ourselves. We can't do this without outside influence, because that brings in outside pressures. We need to have a united front that does not discount any form of resistance, whether it's military or non-violent. Unfortunately, your leadership has completely discounted and demonized people who do use military resistance. We need to step away from that kind of demonization. We need to work together. And I want to know this also goes to the representatives from Hamas. What are you going to be doing to gain the Palestinian people's trust? Because you've lost a lot of that as well, unfortunately.
Osama Hamdan.
Well, in fact, I believe we have to reevaluate the political process, either the negotiation or what had happened in the Palestinian situation. We are deeply concerned about that, and because of that, through the Palestinian dialogue, we insist to have an elected Palestinian National Council for the PLO. So all the Palestinians all over the world can vote, can elect their representatives, can say their word, can participate in making the decisions. And this will make the difference, as we believe in Hamas, by asking the Palestinians or letting all the Palestinian people all over the world to say their word and to participate in the resistance against the occupation, not to wait someone to help them, but to do the things by themselves.
Excuse me, I think